Boys Bible Study. That's right, the boys are back. As always, I'm Ash. My co-hosts are
Scott
and Julian.
Today, we are very excited to introduce you to director, editor, and writer Gabriel Sabloff. He directed the movies we're going to focus on today, Revelation Road 1 and 2. Also the director of Beckman, which we covered just a couple months ago. Gabe, welcome to Boys Bible Study.
Hey, thanks, fellas. I appreciate it. Glad to be here. This is my very first Zoom call, so I hope I get it right.
Amazing.
I set up a whole camera setup for you for this, but then you reminded me, oh yeah, it's pretty much just audio. So just the director in me, it's like, well, I'm going to set up a shot. It's going to be right.
Oh, sure. Well, we all have faces for podcasting, so we really like to stay behind the mic here at Boys Bible Study. But yeah, very very happy to have your directing touch in the mix today. Yeah, I mean, so Revelation Road, which we're really focusing on. These two movies happened in 2013. So I was hoping maybe you could set the scene, like at that point in your career, like what was going on when you were working on Revelation Road? You had maybe just come off of working on Me Again, if I'm not mistaken, and then you embarked on this journey.
Right. Well, Me Again was my first adventure with in Pure Flix.
I see.
My friend, I think I told you this in the email, that my friend John Gunn, who I think you just talked about Mercy Streets. John Gunn is a good friend of mine from college, and I was looking for an opportunity, and he hooked me up with the Pure Flix crew. And the first thing I did was the Me Again. I was cinematographer and editor, and then right after that, they gave me my first opportunity to direct, which was a little Bible film, a biblical film called Apostle Peter and the Last Supper. After that, then we had something a little bit more ambitious, which was the Revelation Road. At the time, it was just supposed to be one movie, but as we were shooting it, it started to get really long. But we didn't want to cut anything, so the powers that be, David A.R. and Jeff Peterson, and a couple other the founders, they said, "Well, why don't you just make it into a 2-part movie?" So instead of cutting things out, why don't you shoot like 40 minutes of more footage and just make it 2 movies?
Amazing. Yeah. Talk about ambitious. That definitely is an ambitious next thing to go into, because that ended up launching basically a Pure Flix franchise, the Revelation Road series.
Yeah. People really seem to enjoy it. And we've made 3 films, and every time Dave makes some kind of announcement on social media, there's always a couple comments in the in the comment section saying, "Where's Revelation Road 4? And where's more of it?" It is in the works. So,
awesome! Good news.
I'll talk about that later after we.
I would love the scoop on that. I do think for our discussion today, I mean, there's so much we could get into. We'll probably focus on 1 and 2 because they really do feel like both sides of the same story.
It's one movie. It was designed to be one movie. Absolutely.
That makes sense. I do want to point out one of the best features of Revelation Road 3, The Black Rider, which is Kevin Sorbo in fur talking in an Australian accent. I think that is just a really, really virtuosic touch.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that movie for ages too. I have plenty to say about that one. That one was really ambitious, as you probably guessed.
Yeah, honestly, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but maybe we should even have you on in the future, just to do that film. Now that I'm thinking about it,
right?
But 1 and 2, I would love to chat about today.
I mean, speaking of your ambition, I did notice that David A.R. himself has called you a very ambitious director. It must have been for a Q&A for one of the screenings. I saw it on the features on Revelation Road 2. When he has Brian Bosworth come up.
It's great to be ambitious. It's not so great to go over budget, which we do all the time on these revelations. But I think it's necessary to get just the basics. I mean, obviously these are low budget films, but we try to squeeze as much out of the budget as we can. And inevitably we go over, because these are ambitious films, lots of stunts, lots of special effects, just a huge cast, more bigger cast you normally get budgets these size. And yeah, even more as we get into the Revelation Road 3 and beyond. It grows exponentially.
Well, actually, I think there's plenty we want to talk about. I think the first thing I want to talk about with Revelation Road is the cast, because this is really a who's who. If you follow this scene as we do intently, this is really a who's who, like pantheon of actors in this film. So I'll start by saying, this is another David A.R. White film, and we've been really studying his films for the past couple weeks on Boys Bible Study. And he stars as Josh in the Revelation Road trilogy, who's a traveling salesman who embarks on a spiritual quest.
Frank, I respect you, and I appreciate what you're trying to do for me. And I'm glad this whole God thing worked out for you. But I don't think it's going to work for me. Yeah,
Dave has really carved out an amazing niche for himself. I think it's pretty singular in what he does. I mean, there's probably only a couple other actors on earth who are kind of in the position that he's in, where he owns and operates his own movie production company and distribution company. And he is an actor who's very interested in starring in film. So he's basically created an empire to facilitate his own movie vehicles as starring in them. And I think it's pretty impressive and pretty amazing for just a guy who wanted to act and star in movies to just create this whole empire so that he could, star in so many movies.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And I think also really impressive is that he never overdoes it. Like, we're really into lower budget movies in general. And a lot of the times, if you have someone who has as much control as they want in a production setting, they'll put themselves in a role that they shouldn't be in. And I feel like he never makes that mistake.
No, Dave's a really talented actor, and he's very smart about the roles he chooses. He knows what he's good at, and and he plays those roles. He's very good at kind of brooding action star, and he's also very good at silly kind of sitcom comedy. And so he kind of, as you've seen through the years, he's kind of gone back and forth between those two different roles. I mean, there's other roles in between. They're kind of the in between roles, like the role he plays in God's Not Dead, which is kind of in between the two. It's kind of riding the line between drama and comedy. His character in those movies, but he just knows. He knows what he's good at. He knows what kind of roles are right for him, and he facilitates that for himself.
I feel like in our study over the last couple of weeks, like we've been fans of his for a while, but like really just like looking at his performance film by film, I feel like he particularly lands in this situation where his characters in various forms are always struggling in between like good boy and bad boy. There's this, like, in Revelation Road, he's, a guy with a dark past who's trying his best to live a straight life. And then this very surreal scenario sort of pulls him back into his like dark urges. And right. I think that's like an interesting sort of motif in his performances over the years.
Yeah, I think you'll notice the same thing when we did Beckman. It's the same thing. He's a really dark, stoic assassin. And then as some time passes, when he gets some distance from it, his kind of more affable personality comes out. But then once the bad thing happens, he goes right back into the thing. Same with Revelation Road. He has a past as a soulless, emotionless killer. And then once, when we start the film, he's had some distance to it, and he's actually created a life for himself with a family. And so his personality is a bit more just mild-mannered and just, quote unquote normal, I guess you could say. And then these sequence of events again bring out the monster inside of him.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's some really classic genre tropes. Are you into what other genre type of movies are you influenced by?
Sci-fi, fantasy, horror. I mean, that's what I really kind of got into this to do. So I'm working towards that.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so totally.
I think you can notice in all the films that I've done with Dave, even going back to like the biblical film I did with Pure Flix, Apostle Peter and the Last Supper, I always squeeze in a couple of horror scenes, a couple jump scares, a couple. I try to get as much in there as I can. You probably saw the basement scene from Beckman and the barn scene in Revelation Road 2 when the Hogg's, Brian Bosworth's wife, is in the barn hiding from the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Another kind of horror scene. I enjoy that.
That's cool.
Yeah, that comes through. And as Scott was saying, I mean, we're the three of us are people who appreciate like genre cinema in all its forms. And, this particular genre is one that we landed on because we don't think there's maybe as much scholarship in the tone that we'd like about it. So it makes sense to me that you have interest in some of those other genres that we also appreciate as well. As far as other like big names in this film, big certainly to us, I really want to bring up Eric Roberts. Eric is an absolute like mainstay in this type of film.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you can say about working with Eric? I think he's great in Revelation Road.
Well, yeah, he's great in everything, and pretty much everything he does. I mean, he's one of these actors who has reached a point in their career when they just love to work, and they don't really have a chip on their shoulder about, I won't work on a budget level that's below this point, or I won't work with a director who I don't know. There's a certain level of type of actor who will just work on anything. If you can meet their quote, they'll show up.
Yes.
So Eric Roberts in this one, we had to have him probably, like 4 or 5 scenes throughout the movie. And he was, he was integral to the story, but he was definitely one of the characters we meet along the way. Eric's a trip. He's a kooky guy. And he does so many movies. He probably on the same day, he'll leave one set and go to another one. I mean, he loves
I knew it.
I don't know that for a fact, but I suspect mostly because he doesn't show up having memorized anything. He makes the crew hold up cue cards,
sure.
And
much like me on this podcast.
Yeah, he does his like wry, like trickster type character. Like he's like a, quote unquote, like good guy in Revelation Road. He's like, he represents order, but he still has his like sort of trademark, like wry, like playful sensibility.
Yeah, one of our deputies had to kill a man a while back. He ain't been right in the head since. Messed him up pretty bad. It's quite a thing to take a life. I still get the jitters about a man I pulled the gun on, and that was some 20 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wish we had a better part for him in Revelation Road. That's why when we came to Revelation Road 2, we expanded his part by giving you that whole rewind to see the rapture from a different angle from the sheriff's house. So we have to we did a whole new Eric Roberts scene because it just wasn't enough. And we figured that we're going to go back and shoot 40 minutes of more material for Revelation Road 2. How do we start the movie and work in kind of like a recap of the first movie? Well, let's start with the sheriff and where he comes back home and tells his family about his day. And we get a little recap of the events. And then we see the rapture scene all over again with Eric Roberts and his family. It was a throwaway line in the script. It was, when our hero Josh comes to meet him, he says, what's happening is crazy. I saw it with my own eyes. My sister was there 1 second, the next second she was gone.
I don't know what happened. They just vanished.
We got 22 people missing I know of. It disappeared right like you said. Hey, Lieutenant, go help her. Saw it with my own eyes. You're my sister. 1 minute she was there, the next minute there's a bright light. Poof.
I told you, it was God. He took them up to heaven.
And that was just a throwaway line we wrote in, just, add some spice to it. But then when we came to making Revelation Road 2, we're like, well, let's shoot that scene. Let's shoot that. Yeah. Let's see that happen. So we kind of had we had about a 9-month time to think about what we were going to shoot to fill in the extra material for Revelation Road 2, which was that new intro, plus all the flashback scenes of Brian Bosworth and his family in the past, and all that was all reshoots.
The scene where his sister gets raptured might have been my most memorable moment from a very memorable set of movies.
Oh, cool!
I wrote down that it reminded me so much of Twin Peaks season 3. Obviously, this came out so much way before the third season of Twin Peaks, but the vibe was like so unsettling.
I was kind of going for Hellraiser.
Oh yeah, I mean the vibe was very unsettling, knowing what was coming.
Big Hellraiser fans here.
Yeah,
right. Well, when the light started coming around to the windows, I tried to have Venetian blinds to kind of see the light come up through the blinds, and I was thinking of the Hellraiser scene when the eerie light comes through the slats and the boards and
hey, God is a woman and she's awesome. Pinhead. She's a Cenobite.
I want to comment on that rapture scene too. I thought that was really unique. I really liked that in both the movies, that style of rapture happening. How did y'all come up with that?
Well, do you want to jump into that, or do you want to keep going with the characters?
Maybe sidestep into it.
Let's sidestep into that, but I definitely want to talk about some other. Let's sidestep into that, but don't worry, I'll bring up some other actors after.
Okay,
yeah.
That's a whole, we'll fix it in post.
I have a couple more people I want to talk about, so let's go on.
Yeah.
Well, the rapture scene. First of all, let's back up. As you may or may not know, David A.R. White loves doing end of times rapture movies. He's been in probably 7 of them, including Revelation Road. So when it came to it, I kind of looked at what had been done before, and kind of like there's this classic trope in these faith-based films about taking what is written kind of literally, saying happens in the blink of an eye, and almost every single one tries to kind of portray it the same way, where everyone just vanishes and then leaves their clothes behind. I didn't want to do it that way because I grew up in an era when, of like Spielberg movies and where it's all about E.T.'s ship rising up into the sky, and there's always lights in the sky, and there's poltergeist and the lights coming down, the little soul orbs flying around down the stairs, and it's all about light, and you want to show something, some kind of spectacle if you're making a movie and not just people vanishing. I actually like the way they did it in that silly comedy, This Is the End, as well. That came out. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
I'm not familiar.
It's with Seth Rogen and all the James Franco and all those boys. They did a kind of a rapture movie, and they did another very cinematic kind of these beams of light that came down and almost teleported people up. But yeah, mine was I wanted it to be a multi-phase situation where this is a big supernatural event that's only going to happen once. So let's make it huge and thunderous. Starts with a light in the sky, and then followed up by, and I had my own personal thoughts of what's actually happening. Like the light from the sky is actually like the judging, like looking down at the earth and seeing everybody all at once, and then there was a huge crash of thunder and an earthquake over the whole earth, and then the light that was in the sky is now in the people themselves who are going to be taken, and the light fills them up from the inside, then incinerates it becomes so intense that it incinerates them completely, leaving only just the little, ball of pure light, pure soul, whatever it is. And then that gets taken up. So that was my conception of it. And, we have a limited budget for obviously, I wish we could have done the special effects a little bit better, but that's all we could afford. So, but I think the general idea is still there and it's still effective.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it definitely worked. I thought it was really cool. And I think you do a really good job of that in general, of like working within budget limitations and knowing what will work and what won't, because I think a lot of lower budget filmmakers have the problem where they're like, well, we'll just do this anyway. And they're not taking into account, like, you do always have different options to use the thing that you can pull off for something that you can't quite pull off, and it kind of takes somebody out of the movie.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I don't exactly agree. I always want more money, and
sure.
When I look at these films, of course, all I see are the flaws. So it's when you direct films, it's when you look at it, you're like, that could have been done better, or we could have done another take of that, or and everything. People don't understand. That's the thing. One thing people don't understand about low budget movies is that you work really hard to make even a movie even close to mediocre. I mean, I'd argue you work even harder on a low budget movie than they have to on big budget movies, where you have all the manpower and all the resources.
Absolutely.
We work really hard to get these movies just up to the level of just squeaking over passable, at least in my opinion. I have very, very high standards. So when I look at the films, I'm like, so that's why I do appreciate you guys doing like a podcast like you do, where it's not mean spirited and you're not just looking to make fun of low budget movies, which seems to be the fashion of the day on YouTube.
Right.
Totally. Yeah. I'm glad you feel that way, because we, like, speaking for all of us, I mean, I think we find that, because we're all like artists in our own capacity, and I think we find that challenging a lot more interesting. Like, if you have like $600 million to make a movie, like, I don't care. You can make like reality, you know what I mean? You can like invent your own reality. Like, at that point, I feel like I don't care, like do whatever you want, have fun. But like, I'm really enjoying like to see how someone can use a comparatively smaller budget and make the most of it, and all the creativity that goes into trying to make that work. I think that creates a more compelling scenario personally. I think that's why I'm interested in that type of movie.
It's easier for a donkey to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a big budget movie to be screened in heaven.
Hear that.
So we were talking about the type of actor that Eric Roberts is, and I have to suspect that another major player in this type of film is a similar way, and that is Ray Wise in Revelation Road, who portrays Frank, the kindly owner of the gun and jerky store. Love Ray Wise. When I see him in the cast list, I'm like, we've got a picture. Like, we're in for a fun time. So
you're in good hands.
Yes.
Yeah, you absolutely know you're in good hands. He is going to deliver a solid performance no matter what. It's just the way he is. He's incapable of delivering a bad performance.
30% price reduction on off-season when you buy in bulk.
Stop. Mister, you're a fine salesman. There's no denying that. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and if I like the answers, I'll buy the vest.
Okay.
All right, first question. Are you a family man?
Sure.
He had done a previous Pure Flix movie, I think called Brother White. But completely separately, I had been doing Kung Fu for like 7 years with his son. So I knew him through that channel. So it all kind of worked out. Yeah. So no, he's super. I'll be happy to have him on every film I do. Nothing bad to say about that guy. He shows up prepared. He shows up with a take on the material, and he just gives a realness to a gravitas to everything he does. He just is, his voice and his face. They just feel like the earth, as old as the earth. That's the base people say about like Morgan Freeman or someone like that. There's people who just feel so solid and like a father figure to us all, like very parental. So that's the feeling I get from
totally.
Ray.
I feel like if he just looked at me in person, I would be immediately comforted. Like, his eyes are so like genuine.
Well, it's interesting because his face does have a sinister look to it. He's been cast as psychopaths and the devil, and obviously his most famous role in Twin Peaks, where he was just a maniac.
Yes.
But I don't know. There's just, again, I feel there's just something comforting about his presence and his voice and just his look And I feel it's very fatherly, and well, maybe grandfatherly at this point. But so it's I really enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, no, that definitely comes through. Just never met the man, but in just my perception of what he brings to the many films that we've seen him in. Let's just go down the line. Someone else who we love, who pops up in Pure Flix and related movies. A man who seems to have been sent to Earth to portray the character of Jesus in movies. Of course, I'm referring to the King, Bruce Marchiano, whom we love here at Boys Bible Study.
Do I have to die?
A caterpillar isn't afraid to leave its cocoon to become a butterfly. Have no fear. Trust me.
Bruce is an interesting one. I think believers are really into him for some reason. Maybe in a way that maybe people outside the fold just can't understand. He has that special something that is calming and peaceful, and people just seem to love him as playing the character. That's why Pure Flix, they come back to him over and over and over again. And if there's anything, I think we said this on the commentary of the movie, like if there's anything that kind of holds Pure Flix together as a cinematic universe, it's its own faith-based cinematic universe. It's Bruce Marchiano.
Yeah,
I think that like someone like Bruce radiates this similar, just something about his like eyes and his like face just radiate this sort of like powerful quality that makes him suited to like a Jesus character, like a contemporary portrayal of a Jesus character.
Yeah, I mean, I know David A.R. he feels the same way about Bruce, and that's why he keeps casting him over and over. And as that kind of figure, they have to be careful theologically about calling him Jesus in some of these movies, like Encounter or Revelation Road, because it doesn't really make sense. But so we always kind of skirt around it by calling him the stranger, or an angel, or it's a vision, or it's something. It's so we kind of leave it up to interpretation a little bit whenever we put him in the film as that role. At least that's how it's been explained to me.
No, that makes perfect sense. Who else we got? Who do we got?
Sting, Steve Borden.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love Sting. We love that he's now a Christian film celebrity.
Barbarians, mount up!
Anything to say about Sting?
No, not much. He just showed up and did an amazing job. He wasn't a diva. He didn't. That's you like the actors that don't cause a problem and don't stand out as this guy caused a problem. No, he was just quiet, and he knew his stuff. And when it came to doing all the fight scenes, he was game for everything. He was excited to just throw himself in to every one of these fight scenes and get dirty and get thrown around. And I think you probably noticed his crowning achievement was in Revelation Road 2, where he took a punch from Brian Bosworth and did like a 5-foot leap backwards into a little creek of about 5 inches of water, and just landed straight on his back with no pads, no rehearsal, just did it. I mean, he's got the experience.
Oh, man.
But I mean, it's really impressive. And I shot it in slow motion, and it was better than any of us could have hoped for, that one stunt that he did.
He's a longtime pro. Actually, that's one of my only complaints with the two movies is I wanted more Sting in it.
Yeah. Well, he's coming back. If we get our way. Did you happen to see the deleted scene? I mean, the after credit scene?
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw that. So you say that he survived and was helped out by the stranger, and there is at least an episode, like 2 episodes of him coming up in the more Revelation Road, which we will talk about, I guess, later.
Ooh.
That is great news, because I was worried with that bonus scene that it meant that he had died and that he was being taken to heaven, because the last time we had seen Bruce Marciano's character, he was taking the girl to heaven. What's her name? Beth?
Mm-hmm. The character's name is Beth.
Yeah, he had been helping Beth to heaven, saying the line about is a caterpillar afraid of turning into butterfly.
I mean, I'll tell you this right now. I mean, I everything about the Revelation Road saga is connected. Like and what you know about it at this point, I don't know if you've seen the third film yet, but you have. So, I mean, even with the first three films, we haven't even scratched the surface about what's actually going on with Josh and the stranger and what's going to happen in the, in the kind of the end times, the Revelation period. And I've written about 450 pages of new material.
Yes, let's go.
That's awesome.
So this is obviously, it's coming from Dave. His company, he's like, people love Revelation Road. We want it to keep going. Let's kind of reinvent it as a television series. And so, but he's still starring in it. He just wants to continue the story from where it left off. Yeah. And so, I have 450 more pages of story. It's ready to go. And it spans, it's this huge epic saga that really spans, from where they left off in Montana all the way down to into California and all around, and ending up in the well, I can't spoil anything, but it's truly epic. It is truly epic, and there's a lot going on, and it gets really deep into the kind of prophecies and our interpretation of the prophecies in the end time, and because it's totally up for interpretation, everything in that book, and even to the basic premise of there being I don't even know what it's called, like the post-tribulation theory. Obviously that's the one that we went with, where there is a physical rapture and then there's 7 years of tribulation, which is which is the theory that's popular for cinema and drama and any kind of fiction, because it's the most exciting, it's the most dramatic, it's the most but there's other theories, and believe me, we hear all the criticism about, like, that's not how it goes. Sure. This theology is not the right one. Like, okay, well, this is the one that's exciting for screen.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a huge challenge. Such cosmic concepts, and like even just trying to depict something in an image is just inherently limiting, especially when people are, understandably very serious about it, because it is, very serious to a lot of people. They see anything, even if they're entertained by it, they see any depiction and it feels very, very limiting to them.
Yeah. Well, and everyone's interpretation is biased based on just kind of what they were told. Right. Their preacher, their pastor, whatever they were taught as this is the way. And so, you're looking out for, if you hear something that doesn't click with what you were told, then there's a conflict there. But I would have disagreements, even with Dave or the other producers, when I would introduce kind of a fantasy-ish concept into this, and they say, well, that's not the way it's going to happen. I'm like, well, how do you don't know that? Right. If this is going to happen, it might not even happen for 10,000 years. Right. It's not going to, there's nothing that says it's going to happen in this era, in this time. So we're just making this up, guys.
Right. But one thing I can say is, when it does happen, it will be like a thief in the night. That is one thing we can be.
That's the boys' Bible study guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, still so much to get into. I mean, two other actors that I want to point out. I feel like Brian Bosworth, the Boz, is like the Klaus Kinski of this film, if that makes sense.
The mad genius.
Yeah, he has the.
Hopefully not in the personal life.
No, he is an absolute sweetheart.
Okay, good. Just so wanted to confirm.
So nice, and it's so easy to work with.
So eager to prove something. Well, you did. You proved how completely worthless you are to me. Now I got a job even you can do. I just need you to stand there and look pathetic.
He's one of those actors who you really don't have to talk to. The only time I even kind of had to direct him was the very first day when we were just working on getting the voice right. I just wanted the voice just the right level of kind of subdued and gravelly and dark. But beyond that, I mean, he really did his own thing. He's one of these actors that shows up extremely prepared to the point where he's taken the pages of dialogue and kind of rewritten them based on his own voice of his character. He doesn't rewrite it to the point where it screws up other actors. He's changing other people's lines, but he says things the way he wants to say them in his character. And that's beautiful it makes my job real easy. Because it shows me that he's really thinking about the character and not just about, do I look right or when's lunch or that kind of thing. Sure. He's really focused in. And I think if you heard some of the behind the scenes stuff, this film and this experience for him, and I hope I'm getting this right, and I hope I'm not talking out of turn, but from what I've heard from his story that he's told over and over again, that this film and this period of his life was the turning point for him when he did kind of find faith himself. And this script and this film and this character kind of helped him on that journey. And I think he's gone around in some talking tours actually testifying to that. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I did see him say that earlier today. And he was saying too, he didn't even want to do movies anymore when he got the script. And then somebody basically talked him into just reading the script. And he said he was really moved by it. And
I had no idea that I was writing something that would strike a chord in him, and that's why he agreed to do the movie. And again, he's another guy just like Ray Wise. I would cast him in anything. I would work with him in any capacity for any reason. He is a truly underappreciated, underrated, just for no reason. His voice and his presence is so powerful, and his acting is so complex and just. He is not. He doesn't get as much work as he should. Let me put it that way.
For sure. Final member of the main cast that I'd like to recognize before we talk into some more general things is, of course, Andrea Logan. I'm not sure how she says her first name. Andrea.
Yeah.
Cool. She brought her very particular, you can really tell that she has a background as a model because she brought that very model charisma to this role, I would think,
Is it really you, Lord? Are you listening? You know what I am. The life that I've led.
Yeah, I mean, having the whole white clan on this one, because you probably noticed some of his kids are in this as well.
Right. Right.
I mean, it was kind of a balancing act because they really couldn't have both mom and dad here on set at the same time because they have 3 kids. Well, I think at the time they just had 2 kids. In Revelation Road 2, she was pregnant with number 3. That's right.
See.
Wow.
I see.
Yeah, if you notice, if you watch Revelation Road 2 again, you see that we only shoot her from the chest up, basically.
Sure.
And if she's in a couple of shots way in the background where you can't really tell. But yeah, she was I think 6 or 7 months pregnant in Revelation Road 2, and so it was chaotic because Dave had to be home when she was filming her scenes, and she had to be home when Dave was there. So,
oh man,
just to kind of carry on taking care of the kids while trying to shoot movies and run a movie studio and all the stuff that they did. So,
of course, yeah, I didn't even consider that, but I imagine that was an incredibly busy time for their family. So it must have been a challenge to incorporate into making the film. But I guess just to talk about some general things of the film, we can all sort of discuss So Revelation Road, the impression I get from it, and maybe my co-host got a slightly different interpretation, but the impression I got was that a lot of the action is sort of taking place in this almost like purgatory, like almost like this reality that's like, it's not completely removed from Earth, because, you know, in the film, David A.R. White as Josh is talking to his wife, who clearly exists like on Earth with him.
I'll be home soon. Everything's gonna be okay.
Look, I know it's not your thing, but will you pray with me?
Yeah, no, babe, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the road he's on and the other characters he meets are like hyper real, like allegorical, you know. What as the director of the film, like do you think that's accurate?
I don't think that was intentional. It's interesting that you had that reaction to it. And I do see where you're coming from in that statement, because I think it's one of those things that happens out of accident, because we didn't have big locations. We didn't have huge establishing shots of towns and you know, things like that. So everything feels very compartmentalized in just these little kind of set pieces, and these little, like, here we have an intersection where a thing happens, and here we have the front front door of a police station, and over here we just have the interior of a kind of a general store. I think it was just budget related. You know, it was just we didn't have the, you know, these big drone shots of the car going into town. Like, we're missing that connective tissue where you see his car going places and arriving places and him getting out. And, you know, it's all budget stuff. You know, I probably would have gotten those shots if I could afford it. But the fact that I don't have it kind of, like you said, gives it that interesting, strange purgatory-ish feel, where everything's kind of happening in these little sets, these little set pieces, kind of separated from each other. And I think that's definitely interesting. You know, when you're on a low budget, it's sometimes, you know, you can't pull the camera back too far, or you start to see stuff you're not supposed to see. Right. Because we didn't have the permit to get the whole road. We just were permitted for this one property. Right. So, you know, for example, that when he visits the police station in Revelation Road 2, it's supposed to be after the rapture. And, you know, at this point, everyone would be kind of hiding in their homes, and there wouldn't be just regular traffic out on the roads. But there was on where we were shooting. So we had to pick very constrained angles to not show the trucks driving by this very busy intersection. You know, that's one of the things, you know, again, it's like you're just dealing with low budget filmmaking. So doing a scene like that with Eric Roberts, and Eric Roberts only likes to be shot from certain angles. And so, you know, it was trying to find these very constrained angles to shoot that scene with. I couldn't just go take the camera across the street and do a wide shot of the whole scene, because it just was not possible with what we had. So it's things like that. It's the necessity of what you have to do in the production that kind of makes the movie feel like it does. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's bad. Apparently it meant something to you, so I'll say it was intentional.
Were any of those car chase scenes that you did do dangerous in any way to pull off? Like, some of the shots kind of reminded me of like when I watched like giallos from the 70s, or like Italian polizia right. movies, you know, like fast cut and like almost look like you're hanging out a car to get a shot type of thing.
Well, I did do that once in Revelation Road 3, but I wouldn't ask anyone else to do that. I strapped myself bodily to the hood of a car. Whoa. And just got Dave's close up through the windshield as he was driving down the road.
Wow.
But
that's like Fury Road.
Yeah, that's amazing.
In Revelation Road 1 and 2, we had a real stunt team with real stunt drivers, and we had a truck with a real camera jib on the back of it. But there were moments of danger that were not intentional, that were accidents, things that could have gone wrong, that just we just managed to avoid some bad stuff, mostly because our car was complete garbage. The black Skylark was a very dangerous machine. We didn't intend to make the movie like that. It was just I wanted a cool looking car for our hero, and they got me one, and it didn't work. We had a mechanic on set for most days to replace radiators and all sorts of other things.
Oh my God.
And then on the big day, I don't know if you remember in Revelation Road 2, the big roadblock scene where Josh is being chased down the road. Mm-hmm. And then when they get to the end, they come to a hill. And at the bottom of the hill is this roadblock where these deputies have guns. The car was not working on that day because one of the PAs had filled it with diesel. So we to shoot that scene, we just had to push the car down the hill, and
wow,
we did it multiple times, and so the car wasn't on, so that the stunt driver, he really had his work cut out for him because that car does not have, just it's an old car and it's just a beast, and to actually steer it and brake it when it's not on is it's really tough. So that got a little hairy.
I have a question about the car before we move on. And I mean, no offense, and we can cut this out if it's a secret, but what was the situation with the radio? Because I noticed that the cutaways to the radio may or may not have been a stock photo.
It depends what cut you're looking. I think in the version you saw, it probably was stock footage.
Okay.
Since then, I've actually gone out and I found a old Skylark in the wild, and I went over and actually filmed a new shot.
You're good. Like the anti George Lucas. You're taking the digital and getting the real thing and putting it back in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. I think I'm like just like George Lucas, where it's like the films are never done. You keep tinkering with them.
Yeah.
But in his case, he had multi-million-dollar effects that he's trying to redo. I had no special effects and just trying to get things just to the base level of where they should be.
You got a Craigslist ad looking for a Skylark with a
That's
working
exactly
radio.
What I did. Absolutely.
Some general themes of Revelation Road. Maybe my co-host would disagree. I saw the film very much as like a look at PTSD. Not that I have a ton of experience on the subject, but it just seemed from the presentation of the film, a lot of it was about how the main character, Josh, as portrayed by David A.R. White, possibly his PTSD from his past in combat is sort of like alienating him from his family. It's put him on this journey. And I saw a lot of like visual things in the movie that might have been like visual metaphors for PTSD. Am I in the right ballpark there?
Well, it was definitely a theme, obviously bringing together Josh and the Frank character, Ray Wise. He was also a vet, and he had also dealt with that part of his life. And, his solution to overcome PTSD was faith. And he was trying to tell Josh about that.
Yeah, I've been there. The blood, the bullets, the bodies, lying face down in the mud. Then you come home, back here, and everybody's acting like it never happened. Yeah, coming home is the one thing they never train you for.
And, I think that message got through eventually.
Mm-hmm.
That was the trauma of Josh's earlier career as a military assassin. Obviously, had a huge impact on him. And there's many more secrets that have yet to be revealed about the story and about Josh's past coming up if we ever get to make the new material. So you'll hear much more about it in upcoming episodes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll even be shooting this by November, new Revelation Road stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I have that much more to contribute about the PTSD stuff. I mean, I think it's all there in the conversation between Frank and Josh at the barbecue.
I got a question about Frank.
Yes.
it's kind of like, why don't they build the plane out of the black box? This guy should have built his house out of the store shelves, because those things were indestructible.
Well, right. And I think it was, I think there was the world's most impenetrable ramen noodles.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. That's funny.
Yeah, like the shark is shooting at Dave with a shotgun. And we did have a special effects team there, but we didn't have the ability to just, blow holes in things and do huge air mortars to just throw, debris across the room. We had the ability to do a couple of blanks here and there, a couple Zerk hits, and just some little stuff, but we didn't. We just had to fake some of it. So yeah, no, that's a good observation.
I did not notice that part because I was still reeling about seeing a guy get shot at point blank range 3 times in a Pure Flix movie, because I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is refreshing to see the consequences of violence instead of a lot of films where they might cut away and you are left up to the
Revelation Road
imagination.
it's pushing the R-rated stuff, but still, it's very tame kind of cartoon violence. It's not we don't show. There's that one bit where, like that one scene where in the shootout where I forget his name in the movie, but his nickname in real life is Shark. He was the crazy guy who was threatening Frank's character with a shotgun. So Dave shoots him in the gut, and he's like, that was probably the most disturbing shot where because he crawls out, and then then his buddies take him away, and then he dies in Bosworth's arms later. So that was probably the most upsetting death that we've portrayed, because that, like you said, that kind of shows the real, how, because when you shoot people with guns, they don't just fall over. There's a long and agonizing death.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to show that. We don't really want to bum people out and get the movies too bleak and realistic, but we still want to just make a fun action movie that people can enjoy and not have kind of ruin their day.
Yeah. You mentioned the sort of influence that the first Mad Max film had on this. And I thought that this film especially did a really good job, not only of like the balkanization of like sort of these less farther away from like a big city areas that we would see after the rapture, but also before the rapture, wherein like you have the law definitely has some control over like this community. But there's still this huge biker presence that sort of works almost at an equal footing with the law. And I don't know what my point is, but I just wanted to say good job again.
No, I think you're. I think going back to your earlier point about it feeling a little bit like kind of purgatory-ish. That's kind of what that first Mad Max film felt like. It didn't feel like it was happening in the real world. It felt like it was happening in some strange alternate Earth where there's like it didn't feel like there was the Earth existed outside of these scenes with these good guys and bad guys. Like you didn't know what was happening off the edges of the film. And so I think the first Revelation Road kind of has that same feel to it, where you can definitely feel isolated. Even when he goes back home to LA at the end, there's again, it's just all budget. Like he's on a street in Burbank, and you can see flames and stuff and smoke in the air. And, but he's looking up and down the street and there's just nobody there. And it was just budget. It's just budget. I would love to have a whole riot scene, on that street, but it's just a street full of parked cars, and the cars aren't messed up at all. So
it gave it such a feeling of despair and depression.
So
and he spent this whole time trying to get home, and then his house is just empty. And even if it is like budget constraints, it's still, I think, is super effective in just having.
Everything that happens on a film adds to it. If you have no budget, you try to use that to your advantage. That's the best you can do. You can't force it to be something it's not. Like if I had forced it to try to be like a riot on the streets, it just would have looked like our crew members running around with, it wouldn't have looked good at all. So you just kind of have to make those decisions on the day when you show up, because we shot the original principal photography for Revelation Road 1 and 2. Again, it was shot in one movie. The principal photography was, 15 days, just shooting everything. Then like I said, 9 months later, we came back and probably shot like another 5 days to fill out the rest of the story to make Revelation Road 2 its own movie. So we had to move fast. I mean, at that speed, you're shooting 7 to 10 pages of script a day and trying to do fight scenes and trying to do car chases. And like just scheduled in the middle of the day, you'll be like, okay, we have 3 scenes at this location. Then we go over here and shoot a car chase. And then for the end of the day, we over here and shoot this other scene. And, you as a director are sitting there, oh, okay, so I have 2.5 hours to shoot a full car chase, which, normally on a big budget movie would take them a month to shoot,
Right.
So now I have 3 hours. So we do the best we can with that level of constraint.
Certainly. You've given us some hints along the way, and maybe you've said what you can say, but for people who are listening, we've through making this podcast, we've discovered there are people out there who are just as much nerds about this as we are. So I think that they'll be looking forward to hearing some of this. But what's coming up next for you specifically with regards to this genre of film, or your work with Pure Flix or anything like that? Is there anything you can say?
Yeah, it's just like I said, they want me to direct Sons of Thunder season 2. And maybe not all of it, but at least the bulk of the season.
Sure.
And I think they want to shoot it right here in LA. And then after that, I think it's just trying to get more Revelation Road together. I mean, at least that's the way it's been explained to me. I'm kind of always the last one to hear about things. but I know Dave is really gung-ho about doing more Revelation Road because the story is there, the scripts are written, and I think they're really good. And I think people who like this series and really paid attention to the details will be really rewarded, because things that are set up in this movie, because I've been planning this since from the beginning, because I'm really into world building. When I write a story or just a script, no matter what it is, I'm always thinking about, how is this a franchise? How is this an entire universe? And not just what's happening in this narrow confines of this story. What's happening outside the story? How is this gonna, if this becomes a huge franchise and a huge series or a huge series of movies or TV shows, how is it going to pay off? 4 seasons from now. And because I'm writing the first thing now, I'm only writing this one Revelation Road 1, but just in case this thing has wheels on it, I might as well put in some little mysteries, some little foreshadowing. I'm trying to think if there's anything in the. I get into a lot more in Revelation Road 3. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen that movie. You've noticed there's a lot of stuff about prophecy, and there's a lot of references to things that are going to happen next. But even in Revelation Road 1 and 2, all the stuff about his backstory as the kind of the Achilles project, and this kind of super soldier process they had done to him to burn out any fear of battle and to completely take away all his emotion to make him a better soldier.
Your life is nothing. How's he responding?
Better than expected. We have to stop.
You feel
He won't last much longer.
Give him the maximum dose.
You're asking me to murder him.
Find the target. I'm not asking you.
And it was an experimental process, and all that's going to come back. Like the doctor, Jordana Capra, I believe her name is. She has a big part later on.
I see.
So all the stuff in the films, it's all coming back. Like, so everything that's been set up is going to pay off. And and hopefully we get to do it. If not, if we never get to do it, if it never works out, I've still been pressuring Dave to say, let me or somebody write a novel of the rest of it. Because I've written all the material out. It just needs to get out there to people, either in the form of a TV series or more movies or a novel or somehow. But it would be a crime if it never just sits on my shelf forever.
We agree. Random aside, I'm just remembering, these the first two Revelation Roads I rewatched specifically so we could be up for this conversation. 3, I'm just remembering the three of us and many of our friends watched literally at my birthday party like 3 or 4 years ago or something. I just like flash back to this memory of like at the end of the day we've all been partying and there's like 15 of us watching Revelation Road 3, The Black Rider. So I just wanted to share that. I just had that memory while we were talking.
Yeah, that one. There's plenty of stories from that movie as well. We shot that in Amarillo, Texas.
I see. Okay,
interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I think we were even while we were watching it. We were like, where's that? Like maybe like Colorado or something. It was Texas.
So you can actually see the logo on some of the trucks where it says "Happy Texas." And there's a couple of signs and some windows. But yeah, this one, Revelation Road 1 and 2, we just shot it in LA and then, Palmdale, Lancaster area to get the desert scenes. And it was a great experience. It was met a lot of people who have become good friends since. And
I just had some questions about screenings. Like, has this been screened as an entire trilogy?
Not as an entire trilogy. We've done premieres for each film, and I think that's probably about it for theatrical. Then these are just straight to video or then since then, obviously Pure Flix, they created their digital platform, and so the films can live on there. But they're obviously still available on DVD. But no, I don't think there's ever been a Revelation Road Film Festival where they've all been screened at once. I don't know. That's a lot of Revelation Road.
We need to do that when things open up. We need to put that on. Scott, I'm looking at you, the curator and projectionist. We need to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll get some genuine fans, but I think you'll also get some ironic fans as well.
Yeah,
the line is so blurred too. I think at the end of the day, we all love it.
Hey, Jesus hung out with the sinners, right?
That's true.
and like I really appreciated with this set of movies that although it is Christian, it's still like it's really clear that like you were interested in the original Mad Max, and it did a good job combining like secular things as well. Because I think post-apocalyptic movies in general are like, there's obviously not like a right way of doing it. You're guessing at what the future is going to be, and then kind of like running with a stylized version of that.
Right. I mean, the process started with just Dave and his friend, Jeff Peterson. Jeff is a executive producer who's done Me Again and a bunch of Pure Flix movies. They came up with a story about a road movie about a guy being pursued by bikers. And that's kind of where I don't think even at that point it was an End of Days movie. And then they brought it to me. And by the time it came to me, they wanted to fold in the End of Days kind of rapture stuff. So that's how it came to me. And they said, okay, you write it, you kind of be the creative force behind this. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I don't remember which stuff was mine and which stuff was kind of already on the page. I think the biker gang called the Barbarians was already there before it came to me. It was just, also there was another writer in the mix, Sean Paul Murphy. He was involved in kind of co-writing it with me, at least for the first two movies, and then a little bit in Revelation Road 3. But I mean, since then he's gone on to do other things, and I've kind of carried the series forward by myself with all this new material. So sure. I'm hoping you guys get to see it, and you and all the other. I know there are fans out there of this franchise, and we always hope to bring you more of it and bring you more of it at a higher level. With a bigger budget. That's always my hope. I just want to work with bigger budgets. I did co-directed Samson for Pure Flix a couple years ago, and that was actually they actually had a good budget for that. When I shot, I think 8 days in South Africa for that, and that was very exciting.
I haven't seen that one. I want to watch that.
Yeah, check it out. It's pretty good. I'm not going to get into the all the ins and outs of why they needed reshoots, but I went down there and shot a lot of the action scenes as well, because I guess I'm kind of known as the action guy for Pure Flix.
I mean, if you can pull off that car chase in 2.5 hours, you're definitely the action guy.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it, and I enjoy having that distinction. Being the guy for action in a very small pond, that kind of gives me a lot of opportunities to do all their action material. So, in fact, they just shot. Dave just started another movie that I'm actually editing right now. I didn't direct it; another guy directed it. They went to Malta and shot kind of a romantic action movie, kind of a big epic adventure romance movie that I'm actually doing the editing for right now. So that's keeping me busy until we get to Sons of Thunder.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and you can just do that from the comfort of your own home too. So
editing has been an absolute lifesaver during this whole lockdown.
Right.
And so
certainly,
I've definitely kept a roof over my head just editing. So
certainly,
it's been great.
I'm glad to hear that.
So just thinking about, I'm really interested in general with not just the Pure Flix model, but also like Blumhouse or even like Asylum. Anybody who's like has these budget constrictions, but still pulls off a consistent product. Do you follow any of those others as well, or like have friends involved in?
Not really. I mean, obviously, I'm aware of the Blumhouse movies, and I'm aware of their kind of the product they make, both for theatrical release and then for the streaming services. I think it's an interesting model, but they deal in. I don't think they deal in budgets less than $1 million, which we do quite often.
Okay, interesting.
I tend to think that the Blumhouse model probably is in the $1 to $2 million range for their movies, or maybe $2 to $5 million, because you can distinctly see the cutoff of quality when you get to each new budget level. You can see what the filmmakers had to work with and what they didn't. I think with movies like the Revelation Road movies, I think they look more like a like $1 to $2 million movie, even though we shot it way below that.
Really, I would have guessed $1 million Revelation Road. Honestly,
no, probably about half that.
Really? Amazing.
All said and done, yeah,
that's very impressive.
But no, I think we try to be, like I said at the very beginning, very ambitious. We especially for these films, with action films, things like Revelation Road and Beckman, it's extremely ambitious for the budget levels. And but we try to work at a very high level. And even for Beckman, we experimented with a new style of making movies where we didn't shove the whole production into 15 days. We actually stretched it out over several months. And we had in final about 25 days of shooting, which is one of the reasons I think that film looks like a higher quality product in the end.
Interesting.
And, things like Revelation Road, it's the best you can do for that budget level in that many days. And I think we pulled off something that makes it look more expensive than it was. I don't know how the other companies do their low budgets. But from what I've seen, to me, it looks like they're kind of operating in the kind of $2 to $5 million range.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't know for sure. And I certainly don't know or follow what Asylum does. I think they're kind of more in the Roger Corman school of films where they're constantly reusing sets and they shoot like 5 films in a month and that kind of thing, where they just kind of recycle things very quickly and to make a very quick and cheap product. I think we have a bit more standards at Pure Flix I don't represent Pure Flix. I just work for them. But when I do the films, I feel like there's not an attitude of let's just make product. I think from the very inception of the projects to the leadership, they always want to make a great film. I mean, their flagship film, The God's Not Dead, that started as just one of their low budget, just regular films that they make. But for some reason, the alchemy that went into that thing, the cast and the script and just the time that it came out, for some reason, they had this feeling like this is going to be the thing. So they put in post-production, they shot a couple extra scenes. They put some extra love into it. I actually shot like 4 scenes in that movie.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I directed 4 scenes in that movie.
I didn't know.
Oh my God.
And Dave directed like 3 scenes. And in post-production, there was a bunch of reshoots and a bunch of extra little editing because they really had a feeling about that movie that it was going to be special. So they did a bunch of extra work on it in post and they released it and it went crazy. So, for the return for the amount of money they put into that to the amount of money it made, it was insane. So I think that's the goal with every one of their movies there's no reason why this movie shouldn't have a chance to be great. Let's try to do it as great as we can. Again, I don't know how they do things over at Asylum, but for me, it has more of a feeling of let's just make product. Let's just put out.
Sure.
Maybe Asylum was a bad comparison since I think their ultimate goal is to get as many 4 for $1 DVDs in the gas stations across the United States. But
I don't want to talk badly about them. I just know from what I've seen of them, what they do. And obviously Blumhouse is very strange. They do everything from kind of just direct to streaming, kind of low budget movies to big theatrical releases that win Oscars, and so they're a very strange studio. Yeah,
I do know they keep their budgets maybe higher than Pure Flix's, but they don't go beyond a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a good model. I think it's a model that the industry needs right now because it's just huge Marvel, Disney blockbusters. And then it's kind of direct to streaming movies and there's really nothing in between.
Right.
And Blumhouse is one of the few studios that's actually doing those in between movies, those movies for like $15 million, or $10-15 million, like your Get Out and Whiplash and things like that.
Yeah, like every industry, it's like huge institution. It's the disparity between like the hugest institutions and the other level are just getting bigger and bigger. But I think that's why we are interested in this specific area of cinema. And it was really a pleasure to talk to you as someone who directs and sometimes edits and writes the films.
And does cinematography as well. On Beckman, I did all the cinematography, except for a couple of days. I just came up through indie films, and you just kind of have to learn to do everything. So I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on.
Huge fans here, honestly. So I definitely want to talk more about this with you in the future. For our purposes, we would really enjoy giving the Revelation Road series the official Boys Bible Study rating. I will start by saying, great to finally cover the Revelation Road trilogy, especially the first 2, but we talked about the trilogy today. I'd say, it's a who's who of Christian film actors and also a very compelling, sort of dystopian, almost sci-fi fantasy plot. I'm going to have to give this film 3 out of 3 sweet and tangy strips of jerky. Okay. I would say this film deserved every last bite of jerky. That's the Ash take. What do you guys think?
I really enjoyed these movies. Sincerely enjoyed these movies. I know we talk a lot about how these kinds of film review podcasts delve into irony, but I think there are some genuine moments of fear and dread and eeriness that you've captured in these films. That so for all of our irony fans out there, check them out because you will see you could learn a thing or two about filmmaking here. And I'm going to give the series these 2 films 2 5s out of 5, so a 10 out of 10 knockoff bulletproof vests available on wish.com.
Well, Well, I'm a little biased because I will watch any post-apocalyptic movie, whether it's secular or Christian. I love the genre, so I loved these two. These movies we covered today were particularly great. Really, after talking to you, Gabe, it's pretty cool to like hear about you being able to pull off a car chase in like 2.5 hours and work within these constraints to like do what you did. And I'm going to have to give it a perfect score, 12 out of 12 barbarians.
What do you say, Gabe? Would you like to do a completely unbiased review of your own film?
No, I appreciate you understanding the constraints and how hard it worked. A lot of people, when they talk about low budget films, they don't understand that. They don't understand how much work goes into it, even to make a movie, a low budget movie. So I do appreciate that you guys are taking it seriously and do understand the constraints and and enjoy the product. Obviously, I would give the film a perfect 5 out of 5 broken 1972 Buick Skylarks. Just when they don't work, the wheels fall off, the radiator's broken, and just 5 of them, perfect score.
You can always roll them downhill.
Yeah.
But the one we used in the film is destroyed. You saw it. You saw it. We saw it. We flipped it in the movie, and everyone applauded when it was finally dead.
Yeah. Anything like I don't know, social media or like personal portfolio of work that you'd be interested in plugging for Boys Bible Study listeners? It's okay if not, but I wanted to give you the opportunity.
Well, I mean, I'm always looking for opportunities. Anyone who wants to, any producers who are listening who have an interesting project, want to consider me as a director, I'm always ready to listen. So, of course,
please hire Gabe. Hire Gabe. We love his films dearly. Any producer would be blessed, I would say. So
that's very kind.
Please hire Gabe and check out his website, GabrielSabloff.com.
You can see my show reel and my clips from a lot of my movies and some of my artwork from the old school days when I used to do that. Nice. So check it out.
Love that. On the Boys Bible Study business side of things, we would, as always, like to invite people who enjoy our free public episodes, which, by the way, are available at boysbiblestudy.com. We invite you to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/boysbiblestudy. We put out at least 2 episodes every month that are exclusive to subscribers, not available to the public. If you pledge for $5 a month or higher, you get those. Also, anyone who pledges at our patron saint tier, $20 or more, gets a shout out from us on every episode. So we want to thank so much Russell, Nicole, Marissa, and Jeff. Our outro music is Oh My God by the pop singer Mary. Check out Mary on Bandcamp and Spotify. And on behalf of myself, Ash, my co-hosts Scott and Julianne, our special guest today, Gabriel Sabloff, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take me